Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive into the incredible world of these plant compounds called flavonoids.
Hmm.
You might not know the actual word, but you definitely know where they are. I mean, loads of fruits, vegetables, teas, and yes, the cocoa in your dark chocolate.
Absolutely. They're everywhere in the plant kingdom.
So we've looked at quite a few sources here, and our mission today is really to zero in on the key health benefits, especially this really insightful new finding about how we should maybe think about consuming them.
That's right. And, beyond just being general antioxidants, which people often hear about, flavonoids have some quite specific effects in the body. Research is really starting to highlight these.
Like what sort of things?
Well, for instance, let's look at vascular health, the health of our blood vessels.
Right.
Compounds like the flavonols found in cocoa, they've been shown to directly improve how your blood vessels function.
How so? Like helping blood flow better or something?
Exactly, yeah. They can improve things like vasodilation, which is basically the widening of your blood vessels, and also something called flow-mediated dilatation. It's a measure of how well your arteries expand when blood flow increases. All this contributes to things like helping lower blood pressure.
Right.
It's about making your body's internal pipes, you could say, more flexible and efficient.
Huh. Making the plumbing happier. I like that.
It's a pretty good analogy, actually. And the sources also mention these cocoflavanols seem to boost something called circulating angiogenic cells, CIES for short.
Okay, sizes. What do they do?
Think of them as your body's natural repair crew for blood vessels. And having more of them circulating, well, that's been linked in studies to a decreased risk of dying from cardiovascular problems.
Wow. So specific compounds in food can literally help maintain our blood vessels and potentially impact, well, serious heart risks.
It seems that way.
Are there other areas the sources point to? I saw some really fascinating notes related to cancer research as well.
Yes, that's definitely another active area. Researchers are looking very closely at how flavonoids interact with cancer cells, and specifically something called cancer stem cells, or CSCs.
Cancer stem cells, right. Those are the really tough ones, aren't they? The cells within a tumor that can kind of resist treatment or even like reseed the tumor later.
Precisely. Yeah, these CSCs are a major target because they're often linked to why treatments sometimes fail or why cancer comes back.
So how might flavonoids fit in there?
Well, the sources suggest flavonoids are being explored for their potential to help overcome chemoresistance, when cancer cells start responding to chemotherapy drugs. They might do this by interfering with specific mechanisms these tough cells use to protect themselves.
Like what kind of mechanisms are we talking about?
So, for example, some cancer cells use these transport proteins, one's called ABCG2, almost like tiny pumps, to just push chemotherapy drugs back out of the cell.
Well,
Or they might use these tiny genetic regulators called microRNAs to kind of switch on resistance pathways. Research suggests flavonoids could potentially interfere with these specific defense tactics.
making treatments potentially more effective against these really resilient cells and maybe impacting cancer progression or self-renewal.
That's the area of investigation, yes. It's
Yeah.
about regulating those key signaling pathways that control cancer cell behavior.
That's incredible, affecting everything from, blood flow to potentially helping cancer treatments by targeting these resistant cells. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is a key finding from one of the big studies you included.
The UK Biobank one.
Yeah, that's the one. Looking at, over 124,000 people, massive study. What did it tell us about the best way to actually get these flavonoids?
Right. This is the major takeaway, I think, that shifts how we might think about this whole thing. The study found that it's not just the total quantity of dietary flavonoids you eat that's associated with better long-term health outcomes, though consuming more overall is still good, definitely. But crucially, the variety of different types of flavonoids you consume is also independently linked to a lower risk of all-cause mortality.
Independently. So it's separate from just eating a lot.
Exactly. And lower risk for major chronic diseases, too, like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, and even respiratory disease.
Okay, hold on. So more is good, but getting a wide range of different flavonoids is also really important, and it matters on its own.
Precisely. And what seems most beneficial is consuming both a higher total quantity and a wider diversity of these compounds. This finding really emphasizes that, Different flavonoids likely have different biological activities, different health benefits.
So eating a variety means you're sort of covering more bases.
Exactly. Like putting together a really diverse toolkit or a team of beneficial compounds for your body, that's a perfect way to picture it.
Makes sense.
And the study pointed to specific flavonoid-rich foods linked to these benefits, things many of us eat already, like tea, berries, apples, oranges, grapes, foods that naturally offer different types of flavonoids.
Okay, that's clear. Now, speaking of eating and absorbing these things, does anything else inside our bodies influence how well they work?
Ah, yes. This raises another really important point that research is focusing on more and more. The role of our gut microbiota.
Our gut bacteria.
Exactly. The huge community of bacteria living in our gut. Flavonoids don't just get absorbed as they are when we eat them, they actually interact quite a bit with these gut bacteria.
And how does that interaction change things? What does it do?
Well, these bacteria can chemically modify the flavonoid compounds we eat. Sometimes this makes them easier for our body to absorb and use.
Okay.
Or, interestingly, it can even create entirely new compounds that have their own distinct biological effects. So the health benefit you ultimately get from a flavonoid-rich food might depend not just on what you ate, but also on your unique gut community and how it processes those compounds.
Wow. Okay, so it adds another fascinating layer of complexity to the whole diet health puzzle.
It really does.
Okay, so I think the big actionable takeaway for you listening is pretty clear then. While the total amount of flavonoids you eat matters, don't get sort of fixated on just one superfood source.
Right.
The research strongly suggests focusing on including a wide variety of flavonoid-rich fruits, vegetables, teas, maybe that bit of dark chocolate in your daily diet. Really mix it up.
Yes, absolutely. This body of work, and especially that large UK biobank study, it really just underscores the profound complexity, doesn't it? The relationship between our diet, the specific plant compounds within it, and our long-term health. It suggests that the synergistic effects of various beneficial molecules, perhaps mediated or modified by our own microbiome, are crucial. And it leaves us wondering, really, what other complex interactions within the foods we eat are still waiting to be fully uncovered for optimizing our well-being?